So, when you look at the world of DEX aggregators, one name keeps coming out on top: 1inch. And today, we're going to dig into exactly how they became the leader in this space. Okay, so let's get right to it with a question. Have you ever made a crypto trade and just had that nagging feeling that you didn't get the best price, that you paid more than you should have? That's the core problem, those hidden costs we call slippage. And it's exactly what 1inch was built to fix. All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the big problem in DeFi, then look at 1inch's clever solution, their suite of tools, how they dominate the market, and finally, what the future holds. Okay, let's dive into section 1. To really get why 1inch is such a big deal, you have to go back to the beginning and understand the mess it was designed to clean up, this huge problem of a scattered market. So the technical term for this problem is liquidity fragmentation. But here's a simpler way to think about it. Imagine all the money for trading a specific coin isn't in one big pool, but it's scattered across, 100 different tiny puddles. If you try to make a big trade in just one of those puddles, you're going to make a huge splash, right? The price will swing wildly against you. That swing is called slippage, and it basically means you get a much worse price than you expected. It's a real hidden cost. All right, section 2. So, given that problem of all those scattered puddles, what did 1inch do? Well, they didn't just dig another puddle. No, they did something way smarter. They built what you could call a meta layer, a system of pipes, basically, that connects all of the puddles together. And honestly, the best analogy for this is a travel booking website. Like a kayak or a Google Flights. Before those existed, if you wanted the cheapest flight, you had to go to American Airlines website, then United's, then Delta's. It was a nightmare. 1inch is literally the kayak for crypto. It does all that shopping around for you in an instant. And the difference this makes is just night and day. On one hand, you have the old way. You're manually hopping between different DEXs like Uniswap or Balancer. You're risking terrible prices because of that slippage we talked about. It's just slow and frustrating. But then you have the 1inch way. It scans hundreds of these exchanges at the same time, finds you the absolute best path for your trade, and just gives you that price. It's efficient, simple, and saves you money. Okay, so on to our third section. It's super important to understand that 1inch isn't just a one-trick pony. It's an entire arsenal of trading tools that has evolved over time. We're going to look at that evolution, from their classic swap to Fusion, and then to Fusion Plus. So everything started with their OG product, the Pathfinder algorithm, which powers their classic swap. Think of this as the smart brain of the operation. If you have a big trade, it won't just dump it on one exchange. No, it's smart. It'll split your trade up across more than 650 different liquidity sources to get you the best price. It even uses these things called connector tokens to find incredibly complex but cheaper routes. And the results are pretty amazing. We're talking rates that can be up to 6.5% better than if you just went direct. But then they released Fusion. And this was a total game changer. With Fusion, you don't even execute the trade yourself. You declare your intent to trade. You say, I want to swap this for that. Then a group of professional market makers called resolvers actually compete with each other to fill your order for you. And get this, they pay the gas fees. So for you, that means zero gas fees. It means no more annoying failed transactions. And maybe best of all, it gives you complete protection from those nasty MEV bots that try to front run you and steal your value. It's a huge step up. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, they launched Fusion Plus. This tackles the final frontier of complexity, trading between different blockchains. If you've ever used a cross-chain bridge, you know they can be, let's just say, complex and sometimes pretty sketchy. Well, Fusion Plus gets rid of that completely. You can now swap your USDC on Ethereum for, say, Sol on Solana, all in one click, without ever touching a risky bridge. It's incredibly powerful. So if you look at this table, it really tells the whole story of their evolution. You can see the clear progression. With Classic, the idea was on-chain smart routing. You still had to pay gas and manage things. But then with Fusion and Fusion Plus, the core idea shifts to being intent-based. You just say what you want. Notice how the gas fees go from being paid by you to being free for you. And MEV protection goes from limited to complete. It's a journey from a tool for experts to an incredibly simple one-click experience for everyone. All right, let's talk about the fuel for this whole engine. Section 4 is all about the 1inch token and the really unique economy they've built around it. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Instead of a standard staking model, 1inch has this super clever system they call the Unicorn Power Loop. Here's how it works. You take your 1INCX tokens and you stake them. In return, you get this non-transferable voting power. They call it unicorn power. Then you take that power and you delegate it to one of those resolvers we talked about, the guys who fill the fusion trades. You're essentially betting on them. And if the resolver you picked performs well, you get a cut of their rewards. It's brilliant because it creates this competitive ecosystem where everyone is incentivized to make the network better. So you've got this amazing tech, you've got this clever token model. What does that all add up to in the real world? Well, as we'll see in Section 5, it adds up to straight-up market dominance. This chart right here is the perfect example of their agility. Look at this. In March, they had about 32% of the market. Then, in April, they launched on Solana, right in the middle of that huge meme coin frenzy. And what happened? By May, their market share exploded to 60%. It's incredible. They didn't just sit back, they saw where the action was, and they moved. It shows they're not just chain agnostic, they're what you might call chain opportunistic. They go where the users are. And the result of that kind of smart strategy? Just look at this number. Over $572 times billion in cumulative trading volume. That's not just a big number. That's a massive vote of confidence from the market. It shows how much value and trust they've built. Okay, final section. When you're moving that kind of money around, there is one thing that matters above all else: security. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important piece of the one-inch puzzle: building a fortress to protect its users. And their approach to security isn't just one thing, it's a whole bunch of layers. First and foremost, it's non-custodial, which means your funds never leave your own wallet. They never touch them. On top of that, the protocol is heavily audited by the best firms in the business. They also do active, real-time screening of wallets to protect you from interacting with bad actors. And maybe one of the coolest features is a proactive defense. It simulates your transaction before you sign it to warn you if something looks fishy. It's security from every angle. And this really gets to the heart of their big picture strategy, which is summed up perfectly by this quote. One-inch is essentially building a secure, walled garden for big money institutional users, right in the middle of the wild west of DeFi. They're creating that safe, trusted on-ramp that serious capital has been looking for. Which, of course, leaves us with a really fascinating question for the future. As they build this super secure fortress to bring in the big institutions, can they still hold on to that innovative, almost rebellious edge that got them here? Can you be both a secure fortress and a pioneer in the Wild West at the same time? It's a really tough balancing act, and how they navigate that tension is probably going to define their entire next chapter.